Thank you for joining the Doctor Whisperer. I am your host, Sharon Feckety, and I am happy to bring you a show where we talk about the business of medicine. I hope that you enjoy it. Please feel free to share, subscribe, and pass it on. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. You will be excited because we're going to have some real talk here about the business of medicine. I'm always happy to talk to somebody in Jersey. So thank you, Sarah Walton, for being in New Jersey. And she's cold. You know, we're never
freezing, you guys.
Today, but you know, she's cold, and I'm laughing at that. Like, I remember the days. So, Sarah, before I bring you on, she is an intuitive business coach, which I love that you put that intuitive, because I think so many women are intuitive and are afraid to say that. And a sales expert who's been featured on the TDW Show and speaks at women's conferences all over the world. And I love nothing more than helping women. So today, boys, if you want to listen to some stuff, you can. But this is for the ladies. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, Sharon, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. This is like a killer topic.
I am very happy to have this conversation with you, especially because it's so top of mind for me when I speak to my female physicians mostly. Okay. So I want to segue this first, and then I want to hear like your why you got into this, but I'm sure this is a common denominator that you hear a lot about. But I was reading, a physician sent me that she was going to raise her prices. Okay. She's going to raise her prices, and she was going to send a letter out to all of her patients, which was very kind. She wanted me to read the letter first, and there was only one line that I wanted taken out. And that was the line that said, however, if you are having financial difficulty, please don't hesitate to ask about negotiating your price. So I thought, we got to take that one out, because you don't have that practice that you want to spend haggling your price. You're worth the price that you charge. And if you don't believe that, then we have a bigger issue, and I have a therapist I'd like to put you in touch with. I'm kidding. Sarah, why don't you tell me a little bit about, with that in mind, a little bit about your why and why you decided to go and help all of these women?
Yeah. Oh, well, first of all, that is the most common story. And it makes me really sad. We were talking, you guys, before we hit record, because Sharon's so generous with her time. And we were talking about, you know, what really happens for women around money and pricing. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons for that. And study after study after study has been done. And I'm sure we'll get into that, but there is scientific backing for why we have been wired as women to never talk about money or ask for money or think that we deserve to make money, as women continue to do all of the invisible work. Okay, there are some men stepping up. 90% of what I call the invisible work that makes society work. And we do that without pay, always, right? Yes. And yet, if a woman disappears from a family, on average, it costs about $175,000 to replace her.
Wow.
Yet we do that work for free. Okay.
But you actually wouldn't even have the damn family if you didn't have her.
Well, there's that too. Yeah. And by the way, that's pre-inflation, $175,000 a year, right? It might be more now, but I just in looking at that. So I will happily share my why.
Yes.
I was raised in Sandy, Utah. If you know where that is, it's where they filmed Big Love. It's where Elizabeth Smart was taken from. I'm sorry, those are my claims to fame, but that's what they are. I was raised mostly by a single mom who also had my younger half brother in the home. And we were really poor, like really poor. When I tell you guys we were poor, I am talking a half a loaf of bread that my mother had made from scratch and a jar of honey would be in the cupboard. The end. No ketchup, no mustard, like the end of list, right? It was really like that at moments, not all the time, but there were moments that was it.
Right.
And when I was 5, I had seen the Nutcracker on PBS. They were doing one of their marathon fundraisers. For those of you who don't remember what that is, I'm sorry. Anyways, we were watching the Nutcracker.
There's no highlights about it on YouTube, people. You'll get
I know. Go watch. It's amazing. Sesame Street. Anyway, no. So I was watching the Nutcracker and I pointed to the TV and I said, Mom, I want to do that. Like, I didn't even know what I was watching, but I knew I wanted to do it. And I was pretty much home taught. I would watch, MTV or whatever and try to reciprocate or like reproduce these dances. And where I was raised, there wasn't much going on, and dance was really a big deal. I don't mean to say dance isn't a big deal, but that was like for a girl, end of list. Like there really wasn't much else. And so watching like the high school drill team and the dance company was just like, oh my God, that's all I wanted. And finally, when I was 16, I got to try out for the team. And I was so excited because I made it. I was very, very happy. And then we got the letter, came to the house about how much the jacket would cost and the shoes and the leotards and the tights and the competitions. And I was like, oh my dear God. Sharon, I don't know if you've ever had one of those moments where you like kind of pull away from and like watch yourself go through something. Like that's kind of what I was like, oh, that kid's having an experience right now. But like my stomach dropped through the floor and I watched this dream I'd had since I was 5 just like evaporate. And it was horrible. And because we were so poor, I decided I was not going to let this go. I know you guys can tell I'm frisky. I'm sure you're not that surprised, but I went and got a job at the mall. And for those of you that don't know what a mall is, go watch Stranger Things.
There are people out there that don't know anymore.
They don't know what a mall is. Sort of God bless. And it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But I sold tchotchkes from a little cart in the middle of the mall that nobody needed, but it was the 80s. It was cool. We were into over consumerism then. And so I got my first paycheck and I went to get it cashed, and we're walking into the grocery store because I didn't have my own bank account, but they had those service desks at the grocery store so I could get it cashed there. We're walking into the store, my mom and my younger brother, and my mom says, Sarah, the strawberries are on sale. Can we get some? Now, I know if you're a therapist, your head just exploded, but that's a different show. So I walk in and I think about the costumes, the down payment anyway on the costumes and the strawberries. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. So she goes off to get the strawberries. I go get my check cashed. I have the money in hand and I go to the express aisle to get my mom and she's not there. I'm like, where the heck did they go? So I'm walking up and down like the front part of the store where everybody's checking out and I see them in line with a cart full of groceries. And it's like my brother's favorite breakfast cereal and some milk and some lunch meats and some bread. The dang strawberries are there. And I'm standing there and it's like, I can buy these groceries for my family, or I can pay for a dream I've had for my entire life, but I cannot do both.
So sad.
And that was the moment when I decided I could take care of my family or I could take care of myself, that was a zero-sum game. And cut to, I made that real. So
I was the dance team.
I did. I stayed on the dance team. I'll tell you the rest. Everybody's like, what'd you do? What'd you do? I'll tell you in one sec, I swear. But what I did, I was the first woman in my family to graduate from college. I have 65 cousins, so that's no small feat.
Irish?
Mormon.
Okay.
And my dad's Irish, so both actually.
Oh, wow.
But yeah. So I went to UCLA, graduated, and I moved to New York City, where I made it in the corporate world. And now I have 2 children, and I'm sitting there in this awesome corporate job, my glass office, hating my life.
Right.
And I'm sitting there realizing a 16-year-old was running my life. A 16-year-old had decided I could take care of my family or I could take care of myself, but I could not do both. And I mean, my stomach was hot all the time. My chest was tight all the time. I weighed probably 20 pounds less than I do right now. That part didn't suck, but it wasn't healthy, right? Like it wasn't great. And I realized that in the grocery store that day, I had decided money was a zero-sum game. My life was a zero-sum game. And what had happened that day is I ended up buying the groceries, and my best friend's mom heard what had happened, and she paid for my costumes.
Oh, wow.
I know. And that was like, to me, that was like, that's actually what women do. That's how we show up for each other. And I hosted a conference in Salt Lake City in 2019. And I've told this story, everybody calls it my grocery store story. I've told it for years. And the woman who paid for my costume was in the audience, and I got to bring her up in front of everybody and be like, here she is. This is the woman who showed me what women are capable of. And then she passed away in 2020. So it was a really special moment that I got to share and say, this is the woman who changed the trajectory of my life. Yeah. So that's why I do what I do, Sharon. I know I try to make it fast. It's kind of a story, but that's why I do what I do.
That's why I always ask about the why, because there has to be a reason just like I say to my doctors that have broken out of corporate, I already know why you did it. I know why you're doing it, because you thought you were going to go to medical school and residency, and you were going to be able to save people and treat people. And you weren't going to have to worry about the administrator and becoming partner and leasing and malpractice and insurance, so they get burnt out, and they spend their lives having children and taking care of everything, and then taking care of business and not doing what they love. So I think that the story is just so powerful and important. If you can get back to the why, right, that you can still help, but that you could do it and you can thrive, is the story we all need to hear. So you left the corporate job, and then what happened?
Oh boy. Well, then it was, wait a minute, what do I do? So while I was in corporate, I realized I had a skill that I didn't really know I had. It was kind of one of those, I'm sure we all have that, right? We're like, oh, I have this amazing bedside manner. I don't know where that came from. It was kind of like that, where I would come into work and there would be one or two, sometimes three people who were not on my team wanting to talk to me about how they could ask for a raise, about why their team wasn't responding. How could I become a better writer? How do I get these two people to work together? They're not working together. And I realized there was this whole people side of business that I really understood and loved. And it was like, how can I just do this part and not have to do the rest of my day job? That was kind of how I was feeling. And not to mention, the higher up I got in corporate, the fewer women there were. And I remember sitting there in like meetings about financial projections or company culture. And I'm like, this is not proprietary information, people. Why? This is like fourth grade math. Why are there not more women in this room with me? And so what I started to do was sort of marry those. And I realized I had this ability to pull out of people. That's why I say I'm an intuitive business coach, because I don't have a program, right? I don't walk you through three things and then you're done and you're cooked and bye. I have to work with the person that's in front of me. And I realized I had that ability to look at someone and say, oh, you're really insecure about XYZ. So you're not putting that in your communication. And that's why that's not happening. And they were like, holy crap, how'd you know that? I'm like, I don't know. Right. I just know. Yeah. And so what I found is there were so many women who felt unfulfilled, right? They were like my own mother, or the way I felt in the grocery store that day. They felt trapped by money. They couldn't figure out how to make the amount they wanted. They didn't even know how to start a business if they wanted to do that. They didn't want to go to corporate because that schedule doesn't work for life. I don't know how that we've allowed that to continue the way it has. It doesn't work for anyone. And so what I started to do was understand there were three elements that allowed somebody to create their own business and or practice. And that is their expertise, right? So you have expertise in life, your experiences, your personal experiences. And I'm sure all you doctors listening, like you've had your own diagnoses, right, Sharon? You've talked about that too. Like you have your own moment where you become an expert as a human in that specific experience and what that's like. And you couple that with your expertise and it's like amazing. And then we put your talent in on top of it. So that trifecta makes your business so strong. It is such a powerful foundation. So it's experience, expertise, and talents. You put those together and you're unstoppable. And what would come up right behind that as I started working with people, and of course I started for free. I was like, hi, I have no dollars now because I just left my bazillion-dollar job. Do you want to work with me? And people were like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm not sure yet, but I'm really good at people. Right. So out of working, it's been 13 years now, but out of creating that process and that pattern with people, I realized what came next was the money. And that is so scary for people, and I say it all the time. And for you guys listening, please take this to heart and hear what we're saying. Men don't have this problem.
Nope.
They do not have this problem. If a man is like, listen, I'll do that for you, but it's 75 grand. Do you want lunch or no? Like there's nothing there, right? Like there's no there. Women will freak the F out.
Yes.
And it's because of something that it was actually coined in a book called Boundary Boss. I hate the title of that book, but it's a fantastic book. If you haven't read it yet, go get it.
Yeah.
But inside Boundary Boss, Terry Cole is the author's name. And she talks about something called high functioning codependence. And we women are bred, I'm sorry, I'm going to use that word, trained, groomed, programmed to become high functioning codependents. And so if you were born into a female body, you physicians probably know this better than I do, there's more connective tissue in the brain between the left and right hemispheres. And that's what allows us to multitask like effing crazy. It's why I'm going to pick up my phone for those of you who can't see, right? So I'm like talking on the phone. Yeah. Did you get the chicken out of the oven? Hey, did you guys get that rope right? Hey, can you make sure they get that? No. I want that in the garage. Yeah. 2 o'clock's great. Right. Like that's what we do like all the time. We're really good at it.
Really good.
But it doesn't serve us. It serves everyone else.
Yes.
Let's be clear. And then we women, it's on us, by the way, we keep it in place with the codependent piece. And the codependent piece sounds like, oh my God, you're amazing. You are so selfless, which is a word I freaking hate. We're rewarding each other for having no self. By the way, just listen to that for a second. She's so selfless. Oh my God, you're so great.
I don't even care about herself.
Killing it. Yeah, all that stuff we hear, we get addicted to that. And now we are reliant on overfunctioning as well. So that's where the high functioning codependence comes in, and it bleeds right over into overfunctioning. And you'll notice most of that work is free. Like I said earlier, most of that work is free. We get paid to do our jobs, but everything else, if you just stop and list what you do, it's free work. Not that that's bad, but it starts very young. And the impetus of this whole entire behavior pattern that we have starts really young. And it starts with the message, your emotions make me uncomfortable, so please stop having them. And that starts with, oh, where's that smile? Where's my pretty girl? Starts like that. And we learn really quickly, our feelings do not matter. Our needs do not matter. As long as no one else is made uncomfortable by what we're experiencing, everything's going to be just fine. And so we keep going and we keep going, and we're about to drop dead, and we keep going, and we don't feel well, and we keep going, and we keep pushing. And that is by design. And so if we're watching ourselves do all of this and someone says, go charge more, you're like, that's going to make someone else uncomfortable. I can't do that.
Right. Yes.
Right. And it works, and it keeps us exactly where we are. And it's going to be on us. The reason I say it's on women, we need to start calling each other out on this, and with love. I'm not saying in a bad way. I'm saying with so much love of like, someone else can do the laundry. Someone else can go grocery shopping. Other people can clean the kitchen. Other people can make sure there's a menu. Other people can take care of the dry cleaning. I don't know how this all fell on us. I don't know why it's continuing to fall on us other than high functioning codependence. And we need to be really aware of where we're feeling rewarded for doing everything for free. And as soon as we start to recognize that on a daily basis, it's not so hard to raise your rates.
Right.
Right? Because you've released the idea that your work doesn't matter, or it should just be done. I should just help people. I should just, no.
Are you still running your medical practice like it's 1990? Well, what about Riva Global Medical Virtual Assistants? A medical virtual assistant, I promise you, is the way to run your medical practice today. Why? Because you can save, thousands of dollars. No more paying for health insurance, no more worrying about office space. You also have trained professionals. These wonderful human beings get trained, and they have a client service manager that makes sure that your VA that you're working with for your practice is hitting all the goals that you need to make sure that your practice is run efficiently and friendly. Check out Riva Global Medical Virtual Assistants today.
We interrupt this awesome podcast to share with you about our sponsor, Thai Technology. Thai Technology was founded with the thought that every customer deserves exceptional customer services. So if you know of any company that has a phone system where the auto attendant doesn't really sound good, you press one and you think you're going to go to a live person, but you end up with a broken recording, it's probably time that you call Thai Technology. And if you mention this podcast, you will get the first 3 months for free. So make sure you mention the Dr. Whisperer podcast show. Check them out. Right. Well, as a recovering codependent, I am very familiar with the work of Marianne Williamson. Hold up. And Melody Beattie, The Language of Letting Go. I have been I share this often, I'm sober 28 years. So there's been a lot of work done on myself. And I realize how much the work that we have to do on ourselves reflects everything in business. So if you are codependent in your personal life, you're codependent in your business life, there's no real, there's no separation between the two. Who you are in life is who you are in business. So if you're shady in life, you're shady in business. I don't really find that there's too much differentiation with that. I love that you've done the work with Marianne Williamson and you've mentored so many women, and all while balancing motherhood. I don't know how, I haven't had a human come out of me. I'm a stepmother. So I tell all of the women in my life, if I had a human, it would be tattooed across my forehead. Don't mess with me. I can have a child.
I grow people. Yeah.
I grow people inside of me and don't kill people while it's happening. Which would, I don't think, be something that we should just, say, look, I understand. And really and truly, the amount, I have a new doctor that I'm talking to who I adore. Brilliant. And all of them, brilliant, multitaskers, robotic surgeons. It always comes down to, I don't know if I could charge that. I don't know how to close the deal. I don't know if people, so just to be, bring you into the life of the Doctor Whisperer too, I work with most people that have left corporate and I put my hands like I'm in handcuffs and started their own practice where they can do medicine the way they really wanted to. And now it's a matter of attracting consumers that understand the value of paying cash for good healthcare. Because good healthcare means you have to spend time with the humans, actually. And it can't be 15 minutes, and you have to have a good staff, and you have to pay a lot of money to keep the doors open and the lights on. So how, I find it, I don't have that problem. I just said to a doctor the other day, I know I charge more an hour than you do to see a patient, and I'm okay with that. And nobody has ever questioned it in all the years I've been in business.
So great. For
one reason only, I know the value that I have. It seems like an easy concept, right? I know my value. I want you to know your value.
Yeah.
So how do we help these wonderful healthcare practitioners to get to that place where they understand how to charge, how to close the deal?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things. One, it is a little bit of internal work, which I think you and I have been saying this entire time, right? It is a little bit of internal, like why or where did I learn that my work doesn't matter? And that is a tangible thing you can do right after listening to this podcast. Like grab a piece of paper and literally figure out where you were taught that because you were taught that. You don't feel that way accidentally. You don't feel that way just because you're a woman. There's an intent there that you feel that way. So finding that moment is actually really important. Now, when it comes to understanding your value, I mean, I always kind of balk at this. Like people say, charge what you're worth. I'm like, you're a human. You can't charge what you're worth. You're invaluable. Like there's no price for you. You're amazing. That being said, what value your work provides a fellow human, probably near priceless for what you guys do. Right. I mean, I have 2 autoimmune diseases. Like I am all about like going to the doctor and what it means to have someone who's extraordinary working with you. And so when it comes to quote unquote, closing the deal, it's never about the money. And it feels like it is. I get that. It is not. It is not. It's about the other person understanding what's at stake and having them understand what's possible because they work with you. If you can get to that, you're done. And that is not even selling. That's just having a conversation. I mean, it is selling, but it never feels like selling. And it's kind of like, it's our job as business owners, right? To understand that we must convey that value. It is our job to help someone understand we're there for them. We're not there for us. We're there for them. And the example I like to give here is, you've nailed it when somebody treats you like a hot water heater and people go, what? Okay. If your hot water heater broke right now, you'd freaking find the money. I don't care who you are. I don't care what's happening. You would find the money to get that sucker fixed. Right. And especially inside medicine, if you are not conveying the importance of high quality medicine, that's on you. And I hate to say it so bluntly, but it is. It's because you haven't done the work to understand what you're about to do for somebody else.
Right.
And if you're a woman listening to this, probably because you were trained not to see it. So that's kind of the two-parter there is you've got to do the internal work to understand who taught you this, when you learned this, and unlearn it and start to really look at whether or not that's real. And if you need to put pen to paper and say, listen, somebody might work with me. And let's say, I mean, I pay my functional medicine doctor, it's like $1,400 a visit or whatever the heck I pay him, right? So I go in and do that. I know dang well I don't do that. I'm going to spend a hell of a lot more money on clothes, on bad medicine, on vitamins I pee out, or all the other things, right? I'm going to spend so much more money. So, excuse me, if you're working on your value there, put pen to paper. How much money are they going to waste on other things, other copays, other things that are going to add up really fast because they have to keep going to other doctors because they didn't do one-stop shop and come to you and get at the source of what was happening right away. And or have high quality care ongoingly so that they don't end up in that situation. And I think that's on you to do and really see what you've been believing is a lie. It is valuable. And then your second step is to communicate that clearly. Like, absolutely, I know you could go somewhere else for cheaper. And what you need to do is sort of sit down and ask yourself where you want to spend the money. Do you want to bleed it slowly on all those different places where it's going to end up being more? Or do you want to come in with me right now and we're going to get this handled, or whatever that sounds like? And you can see that's not a conversation that feels, I don't think, as salesy. It's more like, hey, listen, the grass is green, the sky is blue, the sun is shining, and this is my fee. Right. It's like, that's it. There's nothing there, right? The only time there's something there is when we haven't done the work to see the value. Does that make sense? It's really clear. Like, it's really simple.
It is. It's so simple that it's frustrating.
Yes.
Because it really, I always go in with 5 questions to the doctors that I work with. And it's always, what do you love about your job? What do you hate about your job? I need to get to the root, but there's always a question of, and what are you doing for your personal development? So I really believe what you're saying, that there has to be some connection from somewhere else that is providing this roadblock for you to not charge what, some of the I'm like, wow, you haven't raised your prices in how long? Wow. Because of it, things like inflation and you don't have an amazing financial consultant working with you. And no, the accountant is not the same.
No,
they're not there to provide you with how to make more money. They're
there to count it. That's important too. But they're not there to help you with strategy. Yeah.
I have a bookkeeper, I have an accountant, I have, a financial planner, I have all the things, but I know they're not one person. And then I really do think, I've said this to many, especially female physicians, I love nothing more than to introduce them to other female physicians that are total badasses that have, been so afraid to step out and try business on their own, but that they need to meet other women. So I love the concept of, you have this great podcast, Game On Girlfriend, which I think is great. I think that women that are in business, and I say this for myself too, like I just had breakfast with my girlfriend who's owned her own business for a long time. She's the one who recommended the book that you said that you loved, that I'm now going to definitely read. You Are a Badass at Making Money.
So good, you guys.
Right?
All of you should run out and read it. It is so fantastic. I was sharing with Sharon, you guys, before you jumped on. I read it once every 6 months. It's just so good.
Well, I need to read it then, because I get recommended books and in 5 seconds I'm like, nope.
No thanks.
No, thank you. And I really need women, strong women. I purposefully, and I like to share about these things. I think it's important for every woman, especially in business. Doesn't matter if you're a doctor, whatever the hell you're doing. You need to surround yourself with somebody that's doing better than you.
Every time.
Every time.
And I think that cannot be underscored enough. And what I say to people all the time, because I do a lot of group programs for the very reason you're talking about. Like, it's great to work with me one-on-one. It's something entirely different when you realize you got other people to play in the sandbox with you. And I think one of the things that's so great about that and having people further along is you will meet their expectations of you. We always do. So if someone looks at you and says, wait, your top line is not a 7 figures yet. I'm just making that up. Like, well, I don't care about 7 figures, but you know what I mean? If they say that to you, you're going to be like, oh my God. And you're going to go figure it out.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer that we don't make as much as we need. We make as much as we must. Not as much as we could, not as much as we should, as much as we must. And so when you put yourself in a group of people who have big musts, you start to move differently. You start to think differently. You start to approach problems or ideas or conversations in a completely different way. And that's life-changing.
Yeah.
Absolutely critical. I love that you ask people about personal development, Sharon. I think it's so important.
Thank you. What about the shame that comes along with it? What I know a lot, especially of doctors, I used to run practices and we'd have the financial team come in. And I would say before we had the meeting, I would say, okay, guys, listen up. I don't know what these people know. I know you're comfortable with me, but you have to ask the questions to these wonderful professionals, because when they leave, I'm not going to be able to answer any of your questions. Like, my brain isn't even as big as yours. Okay. So let's get that out there. And every time, Sharon, I didn't understand this. I didn't understand that. Because I know that they are embarrassed to ask the questions, and there's a lot of fear, especially in the medical community, around money and around, I don't want you to think that I don't have this. I don't want you to think that I'm not an investor in real estate. I'm intimidated, and I find that way more with women than I do with men. And there's not as many powerful groups like the one that you have, where there's access to that. So I'm really glad that we have this opportunity for people to get in on those great conversations, because you need to hear them. And not everybody starts out bawling, I assume.
No, please. I hope not. No. But because that's weird, right? Because then you don't have the inside to match what's happening outside, and it always ends badly. Right. Like I happen to believe money is a massive magnifier. So if you're a jackwagon and you make a lot of money, I think we know a few of those, right? Like you end up being a bigger jackwagon. And if you're amazing and you're giving and you're warm and you're nurturing and you make a lot of money, you get to be more of that. Right. So it's really understanding that. And again, that's a profound connection to self in understanding I should have a boatload of money because I'm a really good person. Those actually go together. And the fact that we haven't understood that as women, I'm going to say something a little grandiose here. It's landed the planet where the planet is, right? Sorry, but we wouldn't drop bombs on other people's children. We would drop food and medicine and water on other people's children. I firmly believe that, but we're not in those conversations because we're not supposed to make money. And I said that in air quotes, you guys. So here's the deal. The shame, the fear, all of that, once again, is by design, right? Because you are more worried about how your question is going to affect the other person than you are about getting the knowledge. That is by design, because it keeps you quiet and it keeps you where you are. And I say that to light a little bit of a fire as a fellow sister on this walk with you, that we got to watch out for that, you guys. We all have to be together on that and be like, it's okay, ask the question. And in finance, like, it pisses me off. I'm sure you guys have had this experience when you go buy a car, they look at the man, not you. And you're like, I'm the one paying for this, you jackwagon, right? And they won't look at you because you don't have an appendage on your body in between your legs, right? It's like, what are you doing? Or they'll speak really quickly, right? Or they'll act like you don't know what you're talking. And I actually said to somebody once, he was doing that spiel, well, if you do this finance, I said, I'm sorry, how often does that work? I just looked, I was like, this is fourth grade math. But I don't know what you think you're doing here, but no, I'm not going for that interest rate. That's never going to happen. You go back there and get me a deal that's going to work in real life. And he was like, oh my God. Right. You guys, that is just a conversation. We don't have to be afraid of that. We don't. And I really want to invite any woman, and I get it. I'm not saying your shame or fear isn't real. It's real, but I'm going to assert it was put there by someone else. Yeah. And it was put there intentionally by someone else. Oh, stupid women don't know how to handle money. We are so good with money, you guys. We are so good with money. Do not buy into that ever. And if you don't know what something is, it's okay to ask. It really is. And in fact, what I've found is when somebody stops and asks a question in a meeting, I didn't understand that. I don't know. I'm not a real estate investor, all those things. What I find is that 3 or 4 other people will come up after the meeting and go, thank God you asked that. I had no idea what they were talking about. Right. Yeah. And now not only did you get what you needed, you're a hero. Yeah. So I really want to just invite us to support each other in acknowledging that the fear and shame is real, but it's not ours. It does not belong to us. Somebody else gave it to us and we don't have to keep it.
Yeah. And we really do have to speak up. I shared this recently that I went to see a doctor, and I listened to a mansplain to me. Didn't know what I did for a living because I never tell them when I'm going for my personal health, because I'd rather not. I'd rather not you pick my brain about business while I'm there.
Right.
So, after he mansplained for a long time, I said, "Are you ever going to ask anything about me?"
Good for you.
Well, thank you. But I was diagnosed with hyper irritability. So I'm now in a war with the company about my hyper irritability and removing it from my electronic health records, because, you know, there's a thing called life insurance, and people look at records, and those records, everybody, whatever that physician is putting into your record, they are going to hold that. So we all have to be willing to stand up for ourselves, and we have to be willing to fight. It's not easy, but it will be worth it in the end. And Sarah, I'm so grateful that you are doing this work, especially for us women. We need you. And we have all of your information in the show notes. So please reach out to Sarah. Please start surrounding yourself with women that want to help you be the badass that you are.
Yes, please, please, please. You guys, we are in this together, and it's going to take us as women to undo all the stuff we've been taught, is for us to be there with each other, arm in arm, supporting this kind of growth and development. We're going to kick some assets.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you, Sharon. It's been a joy.
So if you want to party like it's 1999, but run your medical practice like it's 2022, don't forget to check out Riva Global Medical Virtual Assistants.
So don't forget, if you mention that you've seen the show or listened to it on the podcast, mention Thai Technology, and you will get 3 months for free.